patience.
All right, thanks for coming out, everybody. Hopefully you made it out up to the elevators and everything okay, and there's plenty of beer and food or something like that. Who are we? NBCnews.com is part of NBC News Digital. It comprises both the main site, NBCnews.com, Today.com, the cable site, which is MSNBC.com, and CNBC. Awesome. And then also breakingnews.com, as well as a few others. We've only been in the Seattle office a couple of months so far. We used to be located in Redmond in the Microsoft campus, where we were half owned by Microsoft and half owned by NBC, but yet we were kind of our own independent venture. And then over the course of the last year and a half or so, we've been we've been fully acquired by NBC, and then kind of gradually moved over to Seattle to get off the Microsoft campus, which kind of like opened the doors up for a possible redesign. I've been working for NBCnews.com for almost 2 years. My skill set coming out here was C#, JavaScript. Not really that much experience with single-page application frameworks, except for a little bit of Backbone. ASP.NET MVC, which if you're traditionally a Rails developer, it's basically a .NET version, for lack of a better term. And then also did a lot of database stuff, SQL, RavenDB, which is kind of a .NET equivalent of MongoDB or CouchDB. Prior to building this site in Ember, I worked on sections of NBCnews.com, or previously MSNBC.com before that became cable focused, and worked on certain sections of it. The tech section, we kind of expanded it out from there, and then also some of our in-house CMS system, and then that was being used for NBCnews.com for a period of time, and it's actually still being used for Today.com. And then why redesign? Like I said, as a result of getting acquired by NBC, they wanted to shift focus to some of their content, and also there were certain parts of the site, and as well as the CMS, that were getting a little bit outdated. So we took a pretty big undertaking towards the middle of last year to change our CMS out, change our approach to like an API feed for a website, and then also have started evaluating different options as far as how we would actually render the site. We also wanted to look into responsive design, where we could serve just one rendering regardless of device type, phones, desktop, tablets, or whatever. But previously we had separate versions of the site, which could be a little bit of a maintenance headache to have 3 separate renderings for the same kind of content. Why single-page applications? We saw that the lines were blurring between native applications and traditional web applications, which had previously been more document-based. We saw an opportunity for flexibility in design, whether we wanted to have transitions or animations in between, like maybe the cover or a section page to an article or a video, and single-page applications were seen as an opportunity for us to get our foot in the door in that space, and open the door for like more creative designs as opposed to just traditional web pages. Also, our content strategy has been to serve new content in a continuous fashion, transparent, and try to make it as quick as possible. For instance, if you come to either our cover or an article page, you'll start reading and you'll scroll down, and then you'll eventually just start reading the second story, or you'll come to a video or a slideshow or a photo post, for instance. And then also the speed in which we can do that, rather than downloading the entire HTML payload, we can download just JSON snippets and render it as quickly as possible. So we knew that we wanted to do single-page applications, and then we started thinking, well, what else is out there? We've had some expertise with Backbone, but then we also realized that, I don't know, for every Backbone implementation out there, I mean, there's a different way of structuring it, whether it's the router that's kind of part of it, and then we also looked at add-ons to Backbone, whether it was Thorax, Backbone, Marionette, and some others. We knew that we wanted to have a single-page application framework or library that was really focused on the URL. I mean, as a news site, it's very important to have like the rendering of a particular URL for an article be consistent, whether you're coming from the cover, going to an article page, or coming in there via the canonical URL. And then one major reason we went with Ember was the amount of documentation that was out there. I remember that when I went to my first Ember meetup, which I think was at Avalara, that was, I think, Tom Dale and Yehuda Katz were there, and Yehuda mentioned that one of their major focuses is to really improve the documentation, and Trek was there as well, and I spoke with him briefly. I mean, he had grand plans for the documentation, which I think has really come to fruition. Also, handlebars templates are quite a bit more mature than I think other frameworks offer. I mean, there's layouts, there's partials, there's the render helper, which allows you to render a separate controller and so forth. And also, as a part, we also wanted to improve our workflow as far as releases, builds, speed to deployment, and we had a focus on tooling, which allowed us to use tools like Grunt and Node.js to build our assets, whether it was JavaScript, minifying them, running JSHint on them. We also started using Sass more and more on the design side. And then also the browser compatibility. Ember still, at the time, and still supports IE8, and then also the community. NBC News Digital is located in Seattle, but then also we have employees who are also working on the site in our New York office, which is in 30 Rock, and it just so happens that Seattle and New York are some of the bigger, they have both some of the bigger meetups, and they also have some of the core members for Ember. We have Chris Selden, who's here in Seattle, and I know Gordon's done a lot of work on Ember as well. And then in New York, there's Alex McNear and Luke Mealy, among others. And so, in addition to those benefits, once we started launching and started building, we realized that the application architecture lended itself to the routes. You can easily plug those into templates. Everything was very conventional. You could do a lot with markup and routes just out of the box, as long as you would adhere to the conventions. And we just started sprinkling in functionality, speccing out our API, and then going from there. And also the nested nature of the routes mimicking the controllers allowed for the home page to serve as the header, give specific section headers, and then render in the content from there. And then, like I said, we had partials, layouts, and then the support for mixins. So, and then also responsive design, being aware of, having your application code in JavaScript allows you to be aware of the environment in which it's being rendered. For instance, we render the same JS and everything both to tablets, to desktops, and devices, and then based on the width of the screen, for instance, we can adjust our classes that we render accordingly, and then our media queries in our Sass can pick that up. Do maybe a quick little demo of that. So here's our cover, and we inspect one of these articles. We can see that we have different classes being applied here. We have a 12 unit grid system, 12 wide by up to 10 units tall. And then for each of these articles, let's see here. Yeah, each of these articles, we can keep track of like a counter. This one's panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, and so forth. And then in our SAS, we can keep track of, we can have a lot of different computed properties that can use like the class names functionality to render these dynamically. And then as the width changes, we can basically re-render all of these classes on the fly and not have to worry about things like user agent and all that entails. And then another big benefit of using Ember is we can custom render images based on the size of these panels. So for instance, if you're on a mobile device like a phone or a tablet, it'll look something like if this would get smaller. All right, the browser's not going to cooperate, but so not only can we render like the appropriate sized image for the appropriate sized device, but we can also take advantage of it for our ad calls. For instance, we'll render these 300 by 250 ads, but then on smaller screens, we can render like 300 by 60 ads, and the logic to do that is all built into the JavaScript application. We don't have to have separate renderings. And then some of the other benefits like that have been useful are the collection support that's built into Ember. For instance, so we have collection views and array controllers. Like all the content that you see here on the cover is backed by an array controller, and then there's a collection view which is responsible for rendering all the DOM elements. So like there's a main tag which is kind of encompasses the entire panel listing, and then each of these are either rendered as an article or depending on the content, it could be like a list, or we could have custom content like weather or sports content or ads. And I mean, being able to leverage like being able to render different kind of content using lookup item controller, which allows you to have like different kinds of controller to back your content, and create child view, which is a function on the collection view, allows you to instantiate different views, whether it's just an article view or an ad view, and then each of those can be assigned a different template. And then, yeah, disparate sources of data. We have weather, stock ticker, local news, ads, things like Twitter widgets. We can have, and then we can apply those to a variety of different renderings. And then, as far as testing goes, we use CodeShip, continuous integration service, which doesn't happen to be written in Ember like Travis. We use Casper.js, and we run a variety of acceptance tests against different breakpoints. And then, and then the tests themselves run against static JSON that we can control to verify that, okay, given this data, make sure that this particular selector has this particular class or this particular content rendered within that element. And we, like I said, we can render those on all the different breakpoints that we support. When I say breakpoints, I mean anything that we define as a phone breakpoint, which is small, medium, which is kind of our tablet, extra large, which is 1,200 pixels, and then anything beyond that for extra large displays. And so we launched our website, the relaunch of NBCnews.com on February 4th, so it's been almost a month. And so I'm now to talk about some of our challenges. IE8, probably not a surprise. IE8 is supported by Ember, but IE8 itself is probably an order of magnitude slower than even IE9 as far as JavaScript performance. So we actually do have a separate rendering that is not JavaScript based for IE8. We don't actually use user agent detection. We use a variety of conditional comments to render specific IE8 JavaScript, and which isn't Ember, IE8 ads, and so forth. And then we have the maintenance of updating that particular rendering on the server. Oh, by the way, our server is kind of a variant of ASP.NET MVC, which is a little bit different than a lot of traditional Ember applications, which either are based on Node or Rails. We're using we're using Nancy, which is kind of the .NET equivalent of Sinatra for Rails, for Ruby. IE9 we actually are using for Ember for that with the hash location strategy. I mean, it's pretty good as far as JavaScript performance, specifically compared to IE8. The one caveat is since you're using the hash location, if somebody's sharing URL with a hash, then we'll need to make sure that we either keep track of history for analytics, or if somebody clicks a link from MSN.com or Facebook or whatever, and it doesn't have that hash in it, we need to be able to start putting a hash. We need to replace the URL and put the hash in, and also do some tricks with cookies in order to keep track of our referrers for analytics. And then third-party scripts. This tweet was a day after launch. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it says, even Ember can't keep people from breaking the back button. And it goes on to say you had to work pretty hard to mess this up. Well, we didn't try that hard, but the caveat with the history location stuff and back button and everything, there's this spec and implementation of the history API where if there's an iframe rendered onto the page, and then the script that's rendering that iframe adjusts the source attribute, either appending a query string or a hash onto it, it will add an entry to your history state, and then it'll consequently end up requiring you to hit back a couple more times than you would want. So we got that fixed within a week or so for the browsers that was affecting. Other challenges are ads. I mean, definitely we need ads to pay the bills and everything, but I mean, they do have an effect on performance, and we just try to find the best way of mitigating their impact. And then we need to have a custom server rendering for SEO. Like I said, it's based on a .NET implementation. In the future, we might consider Node or something else. And then there's also the being aware of views that still you might have code that's trying to modify some of the views. However, those views might be destroyed as a result of a transition from the route that you're in to a different route. Just being able to check certain checking the properties to see if it's destroyed or not before you get rid of that. And also memory awareness. I don't know if anybody's listened to the JavaScript Jabber podcast. I don't know if it was maybe 1 or 2 ago. But they liken JavaScript applications to if you were to write a C++ program or something with memory leaks, and then you're running your program, and then you want to run your program a little bit differently, just restarting your computer. Traditional websites, as you go to a different page, then you're basically invoking the garbage collection on the browser and starting from scratch. So it's just another bit of complexity that you need to be aware of. The future, we'd like to componentize using Ember.component for more than what we're doing now. For instance, our video player is an Ember component. Some of our ads are components, and our Twitter widgets are components. And it's really powerful being able to use those. There's also performance improvements that we can probably find as far as shaping our Bootstrap JSON that we're rendering. When I say Bootstrap JSON, there's a strategy out there that some other sites have employed, like Bustle.com, where the initial page rendering will include the JSON necessary to render that particular page, and then from there you can not have to have the extra hop to or extra request to your API. And if you go to our cover and then you click on one of our articles, we actually have the JSON present to render most of that article. So you can go from our cover, click an article, and go to that article and only have just the initial requests that you made to the cover to render all that data. Yeah, UX enhancements, do some things with ads, and also I think we're going to be exploring more as far as like how we could render Ember on the server, maybe using Node, and then try to take that response, shape it somewhat using a Node library like Cheerio, which is kind of the jQuery equivalent of Node, and then put that inside like a server-generated body, wrap it with some other, like our head tags and stuff like that using Express or something else. We're looking forward to the future from Ember, HTML bars, and some of the built-in animation transition or animated transitions I've seen discussed on EmberJS as far as built-in transitions or like the Ember approved way of doing those. And also we are hiring, we at least have one position that you would be able to work on, probably MDC News. If you are interested or know somebody who's interested, whether you're in Seattle or you happen to be in New York, those are the two locations where we have staff. Feel free to email me, lance.harper@nbcuni.com. And thank you very much. I'd like to thank Chris Selden. He actually, I've talked with him at a couple different meetup groups, and we had I think it was the first meetup group where we had the just like hacker hours, and everybody kind of said what project they were working on. I think that might have been April or so, and I mentioned that I worked for NBCnews.com, and at the time we were still doing some evaluation. I think we'd kind of decided, and he spent some time with me trying to show me immediately what I could be doing better, which was useful. And then he actually came in, the company that he works for, Yap Labs. There's Chris Selden, there's Luke Mealia, who's based in New York. He actually does the Ember New York City meetups, and we were actually fortunate enough to bring him in for a couple days. Gordon and Dave for creating the meetup. I mean, without having this community out here, it might have been a little bit more challenging. And then the core team, of course. And you guys, and I'd like to thank some of the guys from my office who came out to support me, and then foot the bill for this for the food and the beer. So that's about it. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? So our Casper, we have CodeShip, which every push to master, or actually any branch will push to CodeShip. CodeShip will run a predetermined number of tests after building our assets. And so it's kind of transparent most of the time, and as long as it passes, we don't really think about it. And then if it breaks, then we can see that it breaks and figure out why. And we can also run those locally. There was an upgrade to Casper within the last month, and it actually kind of broke our build process for a little bit, because CodeShip upgraded their Casper, and we needed to do the same. But since that upgrade of Casper, it seems like they run quite a bit faster. I mean, I think our tests can run, I don't know, within a minute or so, which isn't too painful. I mean, nobody's sitting there waiting, like they're not like waiting for every save for their test to run or something like that. Anything else?
So now, in hindsight, how do you feel about your decision to choose?
I mean, there have been challenges, but I mean, overall, just getting our foot in the door with Ember has been great. I think the design, like we have a number of designers and a number of developers, and like the designers can go in, tweak the templates themselves, and it's pretty good. And also, we'd actually like to start looking at applying it to Today's Show or some of our other properties. And the fact that Ember is so opinionated as far as how routes interact with views, controllers, templates, and stuff like that. Like any Ember developer can look at any other Ember application and immediately have like a huge benefit as opposed to some frameworks like Angular or Backbone where like they're not as opinionated. So there's going to be a lot more of a spin up. I mean, there's the penalty where you have to get more familiar with Ember. I think that's decreased drastically in the last year based on documentation and just the API improving from some of the pre.1.0 releases. So yeah, we're really happy with it.
Are there any ways to improve the template rendering or data binding? Do you want to just repeat the question as well?
Oh yeah, sure. The question was how we could are there ways that you can use the templates to improve the data binding? Yeah, so I mean, there's a built-in unbound helper. I mean, we're not up like all the data that you see rendered there is pretty much fire and forget. We're not updating it based on some other user action unless like we completely like wipe out the template from like the cover and then we move to an article, or for instance, like the header will stay the same, but like we don't even update the header contents, I guess. So I mean, most of our templates are using unbound. There's instances like within our video player where like as you click different videos in the playlist, we'll update not only the video, like pass those on to the component, but then also like update some of the content around there, like the description and the source and the things like that.
It's called Unbound?
Unbound, yeah, it's just a built-in Ember helper, which like once it's rendered, there's no more like listening to the controller for changes. Once it's there, it's there.
Can you talk a little bit about numbers and how many people are coming and how are you doing serving up Ember?
Sure.
Something that side of things.
Sure. Our page, like the number of articles and everything that people see when they come to our site has actually improved, probably because of the continuous consumption, but a lot of that is probably as a result of Ember and being able to serve that content quickly. I think that our cover traffic might be like a little bit down so far just because it was such a jarring design difference. Like people who've been using the site for 6 years or something like that because their cover hadn't really changed in that amount of time might just like, oh, everything's new, and they maybe go somewhere else. But like as people come to the site and they consume more content, I think our audience will increase and then some from where it was. So.
As a follow-up to that, did you see any impact on SEO for analytics?
Not really. I mean, pretty much all the content that we render via Ember, it might not have the same semantic HTML, but we render a Node.js version, and that matches all the content. I think it was a meetup or two ago that was kind of a question, and Chris Selden had talked about as long as the content is the same kind of links and stuff, we haven't really seen too much of a drop-off SEO-wise.
Was it faster to develop this in JavaScript versus C#?
Okay, the question was it, now that I remember, was it faster to develop it in JavaScript than C#? I think that, well, I don't know what other, I'm pretty familiar with ASP.NET MVC and Nancy, and they don't really support like the hierarchical routes to hierarchical templates that Ember does. Like I mentioned in one of the slides, it'd be cool to be able to render this stuff using Ember server, like some variant of Ember on the server, because I think the concept of the cascading routes to templates is really powerful. Everything is so conventional that like you can do a lot with a very little code. And with mixins and stuff like that, I mean, you can like really cut down on the amount of code that you write. I think you need to know Ember relatively well, especially if you're going to take an undertaking on like this. I mean, had I known what I knew, had I known now what I knew 8 months ago, things could have been even better, you know. But I think JavaScript, especially just the environment that you can have with auto reload and building and stuff like that. I mean, we like our devs and designers, we make tweaks to the JS or the templates or SAS files or whatever, and just having the reload on our browser is just that instant feedback cuts down on a lot of stuff, which I don't know, C# or whatever you'd have to build, and it's just a result. Like, yeah, working on the previous version of the site, just our builds would take quite a while to do to build when we do deployments, and just even locally, it could take a while. So I mean, some of the benefit is starting from scratch and like trying to keep things like very defined to just the rendering aspects as opposed to the CMS or anything like that might come along with it. So being more specialized with user experience code, keeping that kind of separate has been pretty beneficial. Anything else? Oh, sorry.
So one thing that I like with AngularJS
Yep.
is that it has templates with Bootstrap. Is there a similar concept of builds and templates for EmberJS that say a startup can?
Oh, I see.
Utilize?
So the question, if I understand, is there any sort of integration from Ember with, you mean the Bootstrap CSS framework, or do you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we didn't use any of those to build the site. Since we started messing with Ember, Ember AppKit launched, and I think, I don't remember what kind of styling is included with that, but if you like clone Ember AppKit from GitHub, and I think you can just maybe run npm install and grunt. I mean, there's some built-in CSS. I don't know if somebody else could answer that a little bit better. Okay.
So I'm curious, the production version you have out there now, how many iterations did you go through before you said this is the production that we're going to get out?
I mean, we've. Yeah, it was pretty. Sorry, the question was how many versions did we iterate on until we pushed this one out? I mean, if you look at our repo, I think we're over 8,000 some odd commits. So I mean, we started mobile first, and like our designers could work kind of independently with HTML. Then we kind of gradually integrated it into the templates, and then refactored and extracted similarities as we went. And then we started adding support for the wider breakpoints like tablets and tablets and desktops. So like there was no like this is a version and this is a version. It was just more like an organic thing, I guess. So I mean, we've had several releases to address various like features or enhancements or bug fixes since we launched on the 4th. Does that kind of answer your question? Cool. Sure.
Can I dig into your code a little bit?
Yeah.
As far as just looking through the inspector, I noticed like require. Are you guys using any? Is that just a side effect of your build tool, or are you using require to manage your? Yeah,
we are using require at the moment, which is require.js, an AMD module loader. Yeah, that's been beneficial as far as being able to. I don't know what the other like. I guess there's like the ES6 module stuff that's built into like Ember AppKit. We're not using that. I don't think that really existed when we started. But yeah, require has been really useful just to compartmentalize our code. I mean, we stick with a pretty idiomatic structure. We have our scripts folder, and then we have a routes folder, views, controllers, and then we kind of break it up by taxonomy from there. Like we have the stuff that uses like we either call it panels or stacks. So the cover's called a panel layout, and we have our panel scripts for there, whether it's stuff to render an article, stuff to render like this list here, video, stuff like that. And then if you were to click on one of these articles, this is what we call a stack rendering, and there's a bunch of different scripts that encompass that as well. So yeah, we use require pretty much one file per view or controller or route. So, yep. I mean, we rely on acceptance tests that hit like a static JSON API, which I think is serviced pretty well. We don't have any of we're not utilizing the Ember testing stuff that's built in. We're just wholly relying on Casper.js.
Great. On that, do you do acceptance testing, but do you do any kind of code coverage?
No, I mean, as far as like what percent, no, we don't have anything like that. I mean, we verify all sorts of different selectors and like go from like not only because I mean, if you were to just check the cover and you would check like an article page in isolation, you might miss something that was happening in the transition between the two. So we like our tests also verify like clicking a particular link, navigating to a specific page, and then making verifications on that. But yeah, we don't have any like code analysis thing to say like, okay, this code is 70% covered or something like that. Maybe that's something we could shoot for in the near future, but not at this time.
Okay, I'm going to cut it off there. We can talk more. Thanks, Ben.
All right, thank you very much.
That's really great.